Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, Fantasy Champs?
What's up?
Well, the NFL season is over. My name's Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me as always. And by that, I mean the regular season. We still got a whole gauntlet of... You know, it kind of pisses me off. It grinds my gears.
Okay.
The fact, and I get it, you know, you can't, I mean, these guys, we literally saw, we haven't even addressed the Damar Hamlin stuff, but we saw a man almost die on a football field, so I guess this is a little, it makes sense that players don't play more games in this. But when you watch basketball, like, their playoffs are, like, almost 3 months long.
Yeah.
It's absurd. And, like, I get playoff football for, I don't know, 1 month.
Yeah, but have you seen those memes on Twitter where somebody was like, somebody tweeted, I wish the NFL season had an 82-game schedule like the NBA. And then people were like quote tweeting it. Yeah, and they're like, NFL offensive linemen in week 35, and it's just a plate of mashed potatoes. But like their brains, quarterback's brains in week 42.
Yep. That's so true. It's such a, it's like a, you know, it's a violent sport, so you can't play it that much. But
right.
I wish there was ways they could extend it out. Because I don't think like their goal is to add 20 games or something like that to the regular season.
Add 20 or have 20 total?
20 total. I don't
that
think they
still feels like
I
a
don't
lot.
think you can go any further than that. I really don't.
Yeah.
Because if you do, then there's going to be a lot of like you'll see wacky stuff like teams getting 2 quarterbacks and starting a second.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And then you're talking for fantasy football, a whole litany of issues. But anyway, I don't want to think about that. But anyway, so the NFL regular season is over. We have the playoffs set. The playoff games are set. It's almost like they knew it was going to happen because they had those times out real quick right after Sunday Night Football. I was literally getting ready for bed, turned off the television.
Are you saying it's rigged?
I'm not saying anything. But anyway, yeah, we recorded a whole podcast last week, 2 whole podcasts on Monday. And then I was editing them on Tuesday in the wake of Damar Hamlin's situation, and I was like, I feel like I can't post these, not because of the situation, but because I feel like none of the things that we said applied to anything.
Relevant.
So I was like, let me wait till Thursday to release the first show. So I did that, but luckily we're recording this on Monday, 1 week after, and he just went home from the hospital, so he's perfectly fine. But scary situation.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that they have like the medical doctors and athletic trainers on the field. Because if that would have happened like 40 years ago, he would have died.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a situation I heard in soccer where a similar circumstance happened and somebody got hit in the chest just the right way that caused him to go into cardiac arrest. And I can't remember if the guy survived or not. Forgive me, but I guess there was like a whole like conversation post that soccer needs to figure out their issues and problems with, you know, getting players help when something like that happens. And like, you didn't even hear that at all for the NFL. I actually thought it was highly annoying. All these morons on the internet. Please, if something like this happens, get the freak off Twitter, please. I'm on Twitter, and all I'm seeing is this nonsense about people like, I think the fantasy community, we did great. We did awesome. I'm not bragging, but I didn't hear a single person complain about losing their fantasy championship because the game got canceled.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was so open to trying to solve the problem and figure it out, regardless of whether they won or lost. Unfortunately, in my league, I didn't have anyone on Monday night, so I couldn't even make a stink if I wanted to. But it's like everyone did really well. There's just people who are always like, something happens and there has to be somebody who negatively talks about a situation, like somebody's got to be at fault. Like they went after Skip Bayless, not defending Skip Bayless in the slightest because I don't like him. I think his takes are trash. I think he's one of the worst sports analysts in the history of sports analysts. But the guy literally said, nothing is important because of this situation at the end of a statement saying, what does the NFL do with all of this? And everyone on Twitter is like, he needs to be fired tomorrow. Freaking Shannon Sharp didn't show up for work the next day because he's like, oh, I can't look at
it. You see Michael Strahan
unbelievable
on Sunday, the pregame show said that there's somebody on our network who said some extremely hateful or something like that.
Extremely hateful.
He said, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he said something alluding to the Skip Bayless tweet and in a very negative light. And I was like, Skip is such an idiot and a moron. But if you read his tweet, you understand what he's trying to say.
And then,
most people, I feel should realize that he wasn't hateful.
Personally, what I like to do, and a lot of people don't do this because, I remember when I was younger, 7-8 years ago, and Facebook was still a massive thing, and old people would just, and they still do it now. I don't go on Facebook, so I would assume they still do it now, but they don't read articles and they just share headlines.
Oh yeah.
And it's hey, you got the Babylon Bee out there. You might get screwed if you tweet something and believe it. I've done it before. I mean, I'm not even going to lie. I've been like, oh wow, that sounds real.
It's easy to just see it and be like, oh.
And I realize myself, there's a lot of times where I see a headline in an article, I read one paragraph and retweet it. I don't even know what they said. And it's you probably should read what you're retweeting. But so I like to fact check. I like to go in and see, okay, everyone's reacting like this because of one tweet, but what was actually happening? And what they missed is Skip Bayless sending a litany of tweets prior to that about the Hamlin situation and talking about how it was so unfortunate and he's praying for the family and all that prior to sending that secondary tweet. And then subsequently they went after Scott Van Pelt because that night, after talking for 3 hours about this one situation and no one having anything to say anymore, he was like, we need to come up with something else to talk about. So we started asking questions what does the NFL do? I know it's tough to ask in this situation, but what do you think they're going to do? And everyone online was like, why would he do that? That's so shameful. No one's thinking about. I'm like, shut up. No one cares what your stupid little Twitter account says. Makes me mental. I can't stand it. And they went after the NFL because they need somebody to blame. So they were like, well, why didn't they just cancel the game instead of being like, you know what? The NFL safety procedures worked. That guy's life is saved because the NFL safety procedures worked. The NFL should get credit for that instead of getting reamed because we're asking a bunch of grown men to go on a football field and play.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
I can't.
Very true. But the internet will never listen to you.
No, I can't. I'm starting to get to that age where I'm just I think I've sent one tweet out in a week.
Yeah.
I'm I'll tweet a lot. I've been busy, so that's why that has happened. But it's just, I can't. I go on Twitter and it's everyone's yelling at each other, and I'm like, can you stop? Can we quit yelling right now? There doesn't need to be an explanation for everything. A bad thing happened. The kid's he's okay. He's good. We can move on now. But there doesn't need to be a reasoning behind it. There doesn't need to be it's everyone emotionally reacts and then says, hey, I'm gonna there needs to be a repercussion somewhere and somebody's got to be at fault for this. And then they start trying to find the fault and it's there is no fault.
That's what I did see somebody say when they see an event like that and it shocks a lot of people.
Yeah.
Some people's first reaction after the shock is to just get angry and then they need to just outlet the anger somewhere.
And Twitter is that outlet.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, it is.
Anyway, so with that being said, I'm glad Damar Hamlin is okay. That is a good thing. And this is the other thing, is a lot of false information floating around because all of the people on Twitter who are physical therapists who put their, I don't know, what do they call it when you have a degree and you're a doctor? What do they?
PhD?
Is it a PhD? I don't know. Anyway, they put the thing at the end of their name and they're like, oh, MD, stuff like that. And people are like, oh that guy's legitimately qualified to talk about this stuff. And there's just stuff that floated around the internet, where it was talking about how you go into cardiac arrest. Obviously, your heart's not pumping blood, so that could create some form of brain damage and all this bad stuff that people are going to. And I'm like, let's just stop talking about that. Like, hopefully the kid's okay. Hopefully he's intact mentally, all of that stuff. But all we can do is pray for the kid and hope he's okay. Like, that's all we can do right now instead of speculating what is wrong with him. And so, I turned off my Twitter app because I couldn't do it anymore. But anyway, let's talk about fantasy football. That's what you're here for.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that.
Not even 10 minutes and 5 minutes of me ranting. We have the Fantasy Football Award Show.
Yep.
So the fantasy football season ended last week, to the chagrin of me and probably many people. If you had a Week 18 championship, what are you doing?
Well, probably for the best this year.
Well, yeah. If people use Week 18 as their championship week, what if you basically won your league, and then the championship week got moved to Week 18 because the other guy had one other player, and you had to.
You were up by like 50, but he convinced the rest of the league that
we should move it to Week 18.
Yeah, that Devin Singletary was going to get 50 points, and then you move to Week 18 and you lose by like 10.
Yeah, that's wild. But anyway, so we're gonna do Fantasy Football Award Show breakdown. We're not dressed up.
No,
this time.
Forgot.
I put the notes together and I'm like, oh yeah, we usually dress up. So this is what you're getting.
And you said it last week, but we both got flannels, so we'll say it's.
Well, that's what. Yeah, we're like in the NBA when people dress up the same for a basketball game.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, so yeah, we're gonna talk about the best players at each position, comeback player of the year, fantasy MVP, all that good stuff, and then on Thursday we're gonna talk about our top 5 lessons learned from the fantasy football season, and go through that. Pretty interesting list and some interesting discussions that we'll have. But let's jump into the Fantasy Football Award Show. Before we do that, check out our website, fantasyjimmies.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platforms, please leave a review and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell for notices, and comment down below. And be sure to hit the like button. Are you ready to jump into the award show?
Let's do it.
All right. Might bust out the applause button this year. Hopefully it doesn't mess up the whole system. But we'll start with the best quarterback. The most valiant. This is actually really surprising who got this one, but the best quarterback, put out the best performances and helped you win your league, goes to Patrick Mahomes.
Do you have the applause button?
Yeah, I just did it.
Oh, I didn't hear it.
That's wild. I don't know how but we got awkward crowd noise at the end of the applause button, so that's kind of good. But anyway, Patrick Mahomes gets best quarterback this year. And I literally told Rick, this is like every year. Last year, Josh Allen. The year before, Josh Allen. We were like, whoa, this guy's doing great. Like, you could tell. And I think Jalen Hurts was headed in the direction of being the QB1 this year, which is why we didn't think about it. But it was like Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and then all of a sudden they like kind of faded away, and somehow Patrick Mahomes ends up at the top of the list. It was the quietest QB1 performance I think I've ever seen in my entire life.
You know why it is? Because it's Mahomes will get 4 touchdowns in a week, and nobody will say anything.
No one will bat an eye.
Right.
I'm actually curious about what his numbers are, but he had 419 fantasy points in 4-point touchdown leagues.
He had 45 total touchdowns, 41 passing, 4 rushing. He threw for 5,200 yards. And he also had 358 rushing yards.
Oh, wow. That's a lot more than I anticipated.
Yeah. So he was ridiculous.
Yeah. It kind of begs the question, too, because the last couple years, like, Mahomes has not been up there in the conversation as QB1. And, like, specifically this year, I remember people being like, no, he's not. He doesn't
the
rush.
Tyreek Hill thing was a big
thing. And people fade it. And that is an interesting predicament to kind of discuss, because typically when you lose your your main wide receiver, you take a regression of like, I think it's like 2 or 3 points per game off your total from the year prior. And Mahomes increased that. So last year's points per game total with Rekill. And you know what? I think, to be honest with you, not having Tyreek for Mahomes, it kind of opens things up for him. Because I think with Tyreek, he was probably in the huddle going, throw me the ball, throw me the ball, throw me the ball, throw me the ball. Mahomes is like, all right. But in the huddle now, it's just like you got 7 guys and they're all like, wow, Patrick Mahomes threw me the ball.
Right.
So anyway, I do feel like it might have opened things up for him a little bit more, but the 300 rushing yards is interesting. I'm actually going to look up the last couple of years and see where he was at, because I don't remember him getting that many rushing yards.
He had a career high in rushing touchdowns, and it was his second best season for rushing yards.
Okay. All right. What's that? Is this his 4th year starting or 5th? I can't remember.
5th.
Oh, he's getting old, huh?
He is.
Is he 28?
He's going to be 28 next year. He's still 27.
Wow, it's amazing how fast things go. Holy crap. But anyway, he's a QB1, and he's the best QB on the year. I'm actually also curious, like in your leagues, Rick, did you see, because you're in like, what, 7, 6?
I'm in a good amount.
How many leagues had Patrick Mahomes in the championship?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I won a league. Unfortunately, one of the only leagues I won, because there was 2 leagues that I was in championship game that I didn't win because of the week 17, like the obviously the Bengals Bill situation. So stuff happened involving that, because both those games were coming down on Monday night.
Right.
One league I won outright. That was a free league, unfortunately for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have Patrick Mahomes in that league. Let's see, this league, I don't think the winner. See, it's hard to even look at the champions, because some aren't even the real champions.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in a couple, but it wasn't like it was overflowing, I would say.
Yeah. I still I kind of feel like the importance of having a top end QB is there still.
Yep. In the tough league, so I guess we lost in that league.
Whoa, hold on a second. Did he acknowledge anything?
They brought up options, but nothing has been
just determined or decided.
Yeah.
And it's after
that league anyway. We did not have Mahomes, but the guy we played against had Mahomes in that league.
Yeah. Because I just don't remember seeing him.
Yeah, he was there in like two of the 6 I was in. So
the other thing that I was going to say,
2 of the 7,
because we got to move on, but I do feel like there was, because I remember mentioning to Rick earlier in the season, like Patrick Mahomes was doing really well, like he was a QB 3 or 4 on the season. I was like, how? And he never really had an explosion 45, or at least regularly. I feel like in years past, he's had these massive 45, 50-point performances at some point in the season where everyone's like, oh my God. This year, he had 43 in week 1, but after that, it was 21, 19, 29, 38, 23, 31, 36, 38, 32, 20, 21, 25, 35, 27, 31, and 16. So he was I would say for half of his games, he was in the 30s.
Right. So, well, that's the thing too. And his worst game of the season was 19. That's stupid.
That's absurd. So get ready for people to overdraft Mahomes next year.
Yeah, he's going to be back to being the QB1 off the board probably.
Yeah. Where do we rank him, by the way?
Not QB1. Or where did he? Where did we?
Let me see if I can pull up mine.
I think we had him QB2. I think we both had him QB2 behind Josh Allen.
Interesting.
Because I remember I didn't buy into the hype of him being bad.
Hurts couldn't be QB1 because we would have nailed that.
Yeah. He was in our top 5, though. So I mean,
my rankings had Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and then Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, you had Mahomes 4?
Yeah, I had Lamar 3.
I feel like I had Mahomes top 3.
Gosh dang. Justin Herbert killed us all.
Yeah, he did.
Anyway, All right, so let's talk about the next guy on this list. And I think this guy deserves all of the credit. He obviously didn't have the 27 fantasy points per game that Cooper Kupp had last year, but his season was just as ridiculous. There were plethora of weeks, I think it's maybe 4 or 5, where he had 30-plus points.
Yeah.
And
especially leading into and going into the playoffs, like playoff games.
Yeah. So this is a guy that I know carried some people to some chip games, like
without a doubt.
Without a doubt. And his name is Justin Jefferson. Way to go, Justin. Thanks for your one-handed catch to beat the Bills. That was fantastic.
That was probably the highlight of the season.
But yeah, so Justin Jefferson ended with 22 fantasy points a game. I think he had 360 on the season. Is that correct in 17 games?
368.
368. So he was a monster. He was the wide receiver 1 in half, standard, and regular PPR. And he was 30 points off Tyreek Hill, who was also, as we break down things in the offseason, very surprising Hill was at the top of this list. Late second round pick, you could have drafted him. But so Justin Jefferson gave you exactly what you needed. And like I said, there were multiple games where he ended up like carrying people across the finish line. And in one particular league that we're in, he was on a championship team. Actually, I think 2 or 3 of mine.
He was on. I lost because of him, but or it would be split because we weren't familiar with who was going to win. But he was on, I think, 2 or 3 of the teams that I had that made the championship. 2. He was on 2.
So he had 7 30-point games, and he was 0.7 or 0.66 points short against the Patriots of getting a 8th 30-point game.
Dude, that's crazy. If you were gonna say that a player that's not a quarterback is gonna get 8 games with like 30 points, I think you would take that all day, every day.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable. I was gonna say, so like moving into next year, like obviously I feel like he's got to be the bona fide 1 in rankings because you don't have a choice.
Yep.
But like, do we anticipate this just continuing, or?
I'd be very nervous to rank him 1 just because it's so hard to go back to back.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'll be an off-season discussion. Maybe it's your guy's Chase's turn. Who knows?
I like that. I like the sound of that. Where is he on this list? My God, Jamar.
Well, he missed like 6 games.
Jeez. Get your hip together, bub.
I think he's up there in points per game, though.
Yeah, I think he is.
He was 6th in points per game.
Yeah, he was 6th in points per game. It's so funny because Cooper Kupp, before he got hurt, too, he was right around the same points per game total as Justin Jefferson, so he was continuing to be really good. But anyway, yeah, so Justin Jefferson gets the wide receiver 1. I wish I had him. And we'll answer some of these questions on the Thursday show, but he's definitely making me rethink my definite round 1 running back thoughts with the performances that he put up in the last couple of years in particular. But all right, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver 1. You ready to talk about the next guy?
Yeah.
All right. Best running back goes to another rando. He's not really a rando, but. I feel like this is the same as Patrick Mahomes. Like, where did this guy come from? I don't even remember him existing this year.
Yeah, he did kind of come out of nowhere because he started off really slow too.
Yeah, I'm like, what? But it's Austin Eckler. Congratulations, Austin. And I'm not talking about the ones in the league. Congratulations. Thoughts on Austin Eckler?
Yeah, he was. It's funny because in the beginning of the year when he was struggling, we were saying, that touchdown regression. It looks like it could be real. Doesn't look like he's going to get the same amount. And then after we said that, after we had that podcast, he had 18 touchdowns from that point on. 18 total touchdowns. So yeah, that's the thing. It was just touchdowns. But the biggest thing with Eckler, and this is why this matters so much in PPR. Do you know how many targets he had? He's a running back. Remember this. He is a running back.
Yep. Running back.
How many targets do you think he had?
Like 90?
More.
100.
More.
110?
More.
Is he a freaking wide receiver? 120?
More.
What is Justin Herbert doing?
127. 127 targets. He had 107 catches. That's the offense, though, dude. They run so many like screens and like 5-yard out routes to Eckler. I mean, Herbert does dump it off a lot too.
Yeah.
But like, it's just insane. He is literally that's why if you can get those pass catching running backs, you win.
Yep.
Right in PPR, you get good receivers, you get pass catching running backs, you win.
Yeah.
That's how you win in PPR, and that's how it was this year with Eckler.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit surprising because Eckler was still a top 3, top 4, top 5 pick in PPR leagues, so it wasn't like he. And just to look at my rankings from last year, I ranked him 5th, so it's not like he outperformed what you thought he was. Like if you weren't drafting Jonathan Taylor, McCaffrey, or Derrick Henry, you were probably in the conversation of drafting Eckler or Cook. And if you chose Eckler, that was a smart decision. I know
he was a top 5 pick, though.
In our home league, he was the second guy off the board. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was second. Yep.
But I will say, I feel like Eckler's poor performances early in the season may have. I don't think they did because obviously he had to go off the rest of the season. But the early season, but he had 30 points in week 4 and week 5.
Actually, I think he was the third in our draft because Taylor was one, and then you took McCaffrey too. But yeah. I mean, even when he was like struggling in the beginning of the year, he was still 11, 18, 13.
It was still pretty good. So, but I mean, there's a guy that drafted him in our home league, and he was he got last place again. And you'd have to really frig up the draft.
Yeah, I don't know how you
to do that.
Had that clear. And he had Josh Allen.
Oh yeah. Now
he had the QB2 and the RB1.
Flash forwarding. Okay. On Austin Eckler.
Okay.
I think the reason why he did this year is because Mike Williams.
Yep.
Keenan Allen.
Yep.
Even the third wide receiver who we didn't even know was
Josh Palmer.
All of them got hurt at some point in the season. And I think the only guy that Herbert felt comfortable with that he actually got to practice with in training camp was Austin Eckler. And I think when the crap hit the fan and guys started getting hurt, his response was, I don't trust any of these guys. I'm just going to go with the guy I know, and that was Eckler. And so I think that's why he had success, which is why I would be more hesitant going into next year to just automatically ranking him as the RB1. And this is going to be a weird offseason because typically you're the RB1 and you start going number 1 off the board. And I don't think that's going to happen with Austin Eckler. I think he'll probably be in the same range he was last year in terms of draft selection. And I don't think he's going to be RB1. I actually think that coming off the board in redraft leagues will probably be Barkley or McCaffrey.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I mean, a lot can change from now to the drafts. Obviously, we have a whole offseason ahead of us. I'm going to be very nervous about Eckler. I think I'm going to be staying away from Eckler in a lot of drafts.
Yeah.
And I do still like the Chargers offense, and depending on what they do in the offseason, the pipe dream for Chargers fans is to get Sean Payton in there. So, and maybe they might add a receiver, maybe some offensive line, whatever they end up doing. The offense either way is still not bad. It's not a bad team. So that's going for Eckler. The problem is everything that you mentioned scares me. And then not to mention, he's going to be 28 next year as well. Just a little.
And he's
you're starting to push it.
He's a smaller guy. Like Henry's
he's
big,
smaller, right?
So like he can kind of take the abuse a little bit longer, but like the amount of work they give Eckler, it's going to catch up to him.
In the beginning of the year, and they still kind of did at the end, but less so, they started leaning on him more again. They were trying to get other running backs the ball on the ground. I think they want to split the groundwork with Eckler and another running back, whoever it ends up being.
With that being said,
and then just have him be
catching,
more like the pass catching.
Does it matter?
No, not really. I mean, it does in terms of like being able to finish RB1.
Yeah,
because it takes away goal line.
As soon as they get in the goal line, they give them to Eckler. Well, at least they started doing that after they realized their stupid running back committee was a bad idea. Staley's got to go, man. I can't. But anyway, any more thoughts on Eckler?
Nope.
Let's interrupt you. All right, best tight end. The last best of the positions that we'll talk about, because we're not going to do best kicker. I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah, the best. I don't even know who was the number one kicker.
I don't even care because I'm not on a single league with
the Cowboys kicker, 10 points a game.
Oh my god. But best tight end, Travis Kelce again. It's like this must be what it feels like for people who are not Patriots fans, and the Patriots kept on winning the Super Bowl over and over again. It's like Travis Kelce. Every year he's just somehow tight end one. It's not even celebratory anymore. It's just kind of like, can you let somebody else do something, Travis? Thank you.
I had him last year in Dynasty League. It was awesome. I'll tell you, it was awesome. And then I traded him this year, and it was less awesome.
Yeah. So he obviously had a good year. I just wanted to give you the number because I don't want to spend a ton of time on Travis Kelce. We know what he is. He had 306 fantasy points. Hawkinson was 2 with 215. So it's just like he's so above and beyond like the next best tight end. And just to give you kind of some perspective, because we've talked about not drafting tight ends in the first round, like Travis Kelce, there's better ways you can, build your team than drafting a tight end who's 33 years old now in the first round. Mm-hmm. I will continue to be against that. There are already stands on Twitter telling you right now, Rick, I've read them, seen like 7 or 8 posts about Travis Kelce being in the first round next year, and we're doing this again. But you talk about the wide receiver one, Justin Jefferson, 360, Tyreek Hill, 336, and then you had Devontae Adams, 323. Stefon Diggs had 297. So obviously Kelce finishes as the wide receiver 4 on the year if he was a wide receiver. But then, and he outscored all running backs except for Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, and Josh Jacobs. So obviously maybe it's a good idea to draft him if he's top 7
Here's the problem.
Overall.
It's kind of...
Or at least was
true.
Last year.
Right. So like every year we've been I think for the most part we've been right. This year I would say I think we were wrong. I think he was this year worth a first round pick. That being said, I'm still not going to change my opinion on him because he's now a year older. He's going to be like 30. Are you seriously going to draft a tight end in the first round who's like 34 years old?
I would say the only reason why, because like if Travis Kelce was 3 years younger, Tyreek Hill walks out the door. The first thought I would have had if he was 3 years younger was like, he's going to have a season like this.
Right.
But because of his age, I don't understand how he continues to play, not just at the high level he plays as he gets older, but also stay healthy. So there's just so many factors going into it, and I just don't think going forward it's a wise idea.
You just can't rely on people are going to hate this take, but you just can't rely on a tight end in the first round who's going to be 34 years old.
Exactly, and I would rather invest in younger, like Justin Jefferson. Obviously now that this happened this season, he's going to be like a top 5 pick in PPR. But guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, running backs like Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey. I'd rather invest in an important position in fantasy football than in tight end in the first round, especially when you're talking about Travis Kelce being 1 million years old. So it's like I'm not gonna Ezekiel Elliott, right? He was still the RB1 for most of the season on his team. And he was producing points per game wise in the top 15. So he was still a good running back. Guy got drafted in the 3rd, 4th round because he's old. And we're still going to draft Kelce in the first round because he has Patrick Mahomes' score. I don't understand. He's old. I get it. He had a good year. He does really well. But at some point you got to pack it in. You have to start moving away from it. And I think there's other players out there in the first round that you can draft.
Right. Here's what I'll say that is for the Kelce argument. I would rather have a guy who I know is if he's not going to do well, it's not because of like you got him too late.
Yep.
You know what I mean? With Kelsey, it's like you got him at the end of his career and he's done.
Yeah.
You're getting him too late. He could fall off the cliff really at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
While all those other guys you said, sure, they could get injured or something could happen to them. They can underperform. But it's not going to be because they just hit the cliff and they're done.
Like Justin Jefferson's not going to suck because he hit the cliff. He's going to suck because he got hurt.
Right.
So, anyway, that's Travis Kelce. Any other thoughts on Travis Kelce? Sorry to make all Travis Kelce negative when he wins tight end of the year friggin' 17 times in a row. All right. Fantasy MVP was actually in the best list, so we won't spend a ton of time on Fantasy MVP in terms of talking about him. But I did want to mention the comeback player of the year, and we will talk about this guy who is Saquon Barkley. Saquon, welcome back to the club. Welcome back to fantasy goodness. Welcome back to people loving you again in fantasy football because for a while there, you lost us all.
He's back.
But it's good to be back. Christian McCaffrey comes a close second because he has also been out. But I was telling Rick before the show, I think the reason why Saquon Barkley has to win comeback player of the year over Christian McCaffrey for us more specifically, or for me more specifically, is because I feel like, McCaffrey got injured a lot. And when he wasn't injured and he played in the 10 games that he played over the last 2 years, he was actually really good. Like, he still produced like Christian McCaffrey. Barkley, when he was on the field and healthy, outside of the injuries, kind of sucked. He wasn't good. There wasn't really anything to play for him. And like he got hurt multiple times. He wasn't good when he was on the field. And that caused me to be like, why are people still drafting this guy? Like, I was out on Barkley. And we talked about that in the Misha show where I, had predicted that he was going to underperform his ADP of like RB 13, 14, and he ended up finishing 7, 8, 9 spots higher than that. So, like, I'm glad he's back. I love Barkley. I want, obviously, I want him on my team to have success and stuff like that. And I ended up trading for him, which I don't think ended up working out for me, to be honest. But he is the comeback player of the year, and I think he definitely deserves it because he's been through hell and high water, and now he's going to the playoffs, first time ever. So good luck, Saquon, in the playoffs, my guy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, him and McCaffrey, you could have given it to either of these guys. But I'm glad, as the OG Barkley stan from his Penn State days to his rookie season. Good to see him doing well again and kind of back to being that RB1 conversation. I wish I had him in more leagues, though. I only have him in one singular league, and I don't have McCaffrey in any. So,
well, that's because they're old.
Yeah, I guess.
But anyway, so there you go, Saquon. And then the final discussion that we'll have, and not really a discussion because we already talked about him, is the fantasy MVP, Justin Jefferson. Congratulations, my friend. Bestow the crown. You're my MVP if I had you in a league, but I don't.
No.
Congratulations. This guy, it hurts a little bit because the end of the season he did have the 7-point game or the 2-point game or whatever it was in the championship. And it killed Rick's team. It killed a lot of people's team. But, I would say 90% of the battle in fantasy football is getting to the fantasy championship.
Right.
That
got you there.
The battle to get there is difficult, and he had three straight weeks of 30-point games to carry you to the title. And hopefully your team was good enough to overcome the bad performance. I played him in the championship, so those 2 points, I was like, yes. But this guy was on almost every team that I'm in, every league that I'm in. He was almost on every team that was in the championship. And so in some way, shape, or form, Justin Jefferson had carried your team, and I think that's why he deserves fantasy MVP, even though that 2-point game might have killed you. Might have taken an L on that one.
Yeah, it definitely sadly killed me. Yeah, but as you said, like, you're probably not getting to the championship without Jefferson.
No, not at all.
I mean, the season he had was ridiculous. It was before that championship game, it was pretty much on par with what Cooper Kupp did last year.
Right.
Which he had the greatest wide receiver season of all time, and Jefferson was not too far behind him. Like I think Cup was averaging like 25 points a game last year, which is so stupid. And before this game, Jefferson was at like 24, I think, or 23.8, 23.9. So like close. And nobody in the last couple of years had hit even 23, and Jefferson was higher than that. So, and then obviously the Week 18 game happened, or Week 17, and he fell off a little bit. And hopefully your teams were good enough. You know, we did see leagues where they still won with Jefferson. Unfortunately, my leagues did not. But yeah, I mean, he got you there, and no one was even really close, I think, to being before that point, being as important to a team that Jefferson was.
Yeah, no, and that's a very valid point. Because like I said, the QB1, I like not super memorable. Austin Eckler like going off,
not super memorable.
And Travis Kelce, I mean, I don't. Generally speaking, teams that draft a tight end in the first round suffer from, malnutrition at other positions. So they generally don't make it to the chip unless you're a dynasty team that traded for him. So it's like the one position that mattered this year was the wide receiver position, and the guy that carried. Like, I actually think some of his performances carrying you was more important than Cooper Kupp's stretch of games last year to win the championship, because I don't know that he even played as well as, like, he might have won you the game, so that probably is better. But anyway, fantasy MVP Justin Jefferson, a wide receiver, wins it again. But there you go.
Yeah, back-to-back MVPs for receivers, huh?
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, we need a running back next year.
Specifically because I feel like all I've talked about over the course of my entire fantasy football life is running backs. But anyway, Thursday we're going to talk about our top 5 lessons learned, and then we're going to send you off to Super Wild Card Weekend. Talk to you later, guys.
Later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube, and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.